Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. And now here comes your irritated and annoyed host, Voice of Doom. Okay, thank you, Mr. Announcer. I'm going to keep these diatribes going for a while and kind of stay on the same subject because I'm not going to let things go just because everybody else wants to move on to other subjects like the price of gas and, pressing things that people are worried about. Get back to where we are, square one. I was digging through the archives, and I could look for a more dramatic headline, but this is September 9th, 2001. Clerics deciding bin Laden's fate. Hijack plot was wider, U.S. Suspects. Just a bunch of articles on Los Angeles Times. That was back when we were actually a little bit united as far as, I think everybody in the country was pretty aghast. I don't think there was anybody that was saying the U.S. shouldn't retaliate. And by retaliate, I mean solve. Pakistani envoys failed to get the Taliban to shift stance and abruptly return across a tense border. Now, in retrospect, the envoys from Pakistan, they were just like the, Mongolians delivering messages to Japan. They were lucky to live with their heads. But bin Laden ended up being captured or shot or killed in Pakistan, so they were harboring him in the long run. And Pakistan's always been on the cusp. They've never been truly, on the side of peace or, there's a fair number of terrorists in Pakistan. Everybody knows it. Hijacker may have met with Iraqi spy. Afghanistan is like nothing you've ever seen, Soviet vets say. There's a Soviet vet saying if America decides to go in, they're in for trouble. And Russia was no slouch. The Soviet Union was no slouch in 82. They were not. And they were ousted. They got their butts kicked out of there. Pakistan's Muslim schools offer a dark view of U.S., so already you see Pakistan. We're back to square one, only it's even worse. Here's the picture. 400 refugees on the Pakistan border because they're worried about war with the U.S., Afghan refugees. 400. That's nothing compared to what we have now. They can't get all the Americans out because the airport is kind of cordoned off. They've secured the airport today. Everything happens day by day now, and people don't realize how fast things are going to be happening. They're not going to be able to keep up, and they're certainly not going to be able to sit there and talk about how the stock market is doing. Oh, investors are jittery because of international affairs. Give me a break. That stock market has no business being up at 35,000 anyway, or 34,000. It has no business being there. So that's all just rampant speculation and just draining every cent dry you can on Ponzi schemes. Give me a break, 35,000. So one good thing I've seen about this whole utter fiasco, cataclysmic catastrophe that can't be described any other way is the tiger is turning on the master. And I got to think back to Roy Horn. Siegfried and Roy was a very famous magician, showman of the highest caliber in Las Vegas. They're main attraction was the white tigers that they had trained for their magic acts, which was great because people just loved watching the white tigers. And I went to the Mirage now and again. I never saw them, but I saw the tigers behind the cage in the glass panel, on display. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking this may not be right. It may not be right to use animals in very exploitive and cavalier fashion, keep them all cooped up, and then they're happy to come out and do tricks for the audience. Never been much into that. I mean, I saw cockatoos, and that's kind of cool because they're not real bright anyway. So if they're out there on stage doing clever things, I can live with that. But tigers being cooped up, I don't know. So Roy loved the tiger, and the tiger loved Roy, Mantifor. And the tiger and Roy were on stage, and he had trained the tiger, and they had a great rapport, and the tiger grabbed him by the throat and dragged him off the stage. And nothing was ever the same after that. They kind of realized maybe what they were doing wasn't right, and both of Siegfried and Roy kind of ended up in a tragic way. So the tiger is the U.S. press, the media, the press corps in the White House. And Roy, I'm afraid, is going to be the Petri dish and his administration, because Petri and the gang always thought that they would have the press at their back, and no matter what they did, they were not going to have to answer any questions about it or actually get deep into the weeds about anything, because the press, they like Biden. He's a good guy, and he's better than the last guy who they hated, and they would rant on and on about the smallest things. I saw a press conference with the NSA chief, who should resign. There's no reason he should even be answering questions. He should resign immediately. But he was being grilled. They weren't talking about, anything other than the fiasco. And it's like, yeah, the tiger is turning on you. You realize now that, it was an unholy fellowship. It was an unholy alliance. And now the cause and effect is going to happen. I don't need to do a damn thing. It's going to happen all by itself, but things are happening so fast, I got to get going with all this, trying to explain how we better hurry up and get things done. Now, you can't go on the American news, I don't care what channel it is, and see, they got to keep on this, just like the stupid-ass MSNBC and those idiots. They get one thing about Trump, they think they're on to, they're sniffing some scandal somewhere, and they talk about it 24/7 without stop. They don't go on to other subjects. It's Trump might have not paid enough taxes on some building back in 1987. He shortchanged some people on his, contract with, the cement workers. And it's a huge scandal, and we're going to talk about it every day, all night long. And we're not going to have any commercial interruptions either, because this is so big that we got to stop the world and talk about Trump's, tax mistake. Okay, now we got to do the same thing with this Afghanistan thing, because these so-called legitimate outlets aren't doing anything. And even the geniuses are kind of more into their books and other things than actually going, wait, millions of people are at risk here, and there may be nothing we can do about it. Here's what the UN's going to do about it. I wrote some notes down because I wanted to make sure that I got all the proper, glibness, and they use words correctly. And when you look at the words they use, you realize nothing's going to happen. We're not going to do a damn thing. UN Security Council should call upon, like, let's go make a visit. Let's get a little visiting meeting and call upon the Taliban to fulfill their promises and fully respect amnesty. Okay, call upon, you know. Use every measure at our disposal to urge no demolition of art. Urge. They're going to call upon, they're going to urge, they're going to stress Afghan human rights. We're going to stress it. We're going to have very strongly worded letters and send them to the Taliban stressing Afghan human rights. Call on neighbors to open borders. So they're going to call again. Everything's going to be done by phone, apparently. Stress having an inclusive government and stress that UN won't recognize the Taliban as a legitimate body unless they have human, they mobilize human assistance, or UN mobilizes human assistance. The UN won't recognize the Taliban as the legitimate government, which means no aid to them and no putting them on the UN Security Council with veto power, which is something they would probably do. So the UN, yeah, they're not going to do a damn thing. And if they put people in with their little berets on to try to keep the peace, then they are going to get the berets sent back empty. Here's a box of the berets that were over here. It's bad, but I'm glad to see the press is finally going, we can't ignore this anymore, and if we have to eat our own, we'll eat our own. And it's good to see. A lot of these people are probably scared. I haven't heard anything from that giraffe, whatever she is, who thought she was so high and mighty. I really want to hear her, defense for why we needed to get rid of the last guy because he was so incompetent and we got this new guy. Now, I might have to go on because the answer to our problem immediately is we got to just get rid of and purge the government completely and start with the administration. And when I say purge, I mean you can't go through all this. You can impeach, but you're going to have to impeach a bunch of people. You got to get them all out, every last one of them out. Impeach them all at once and convict them all at once and oust them all at once. And then we're going to have to reorganize something real quick because we got no time. But we have no time if we leave these people in because they're leading us to destruction. And I mean fast. I mean like in the next few months. So there's got to be a decoupling, a giant decoupling, and I got to explain what has to be done. We got to decouple the U.S. military from the reasons we fought the war, like I talked about in one of my first episodes, The History of War. We have to decouple the fact that people fight for what we believe is right, and then now we can't be critical of anything that happens in that fight because it's disrespectful to the people that fought it. And it's even the Afghani forces. And of course, Biden threw them under the bus after he totally defanged them, and now he throws them under the bus. And we got to decouple America from the America that is causing all this international turmoil. America, the people, America, the ideals of America need to be decoupled from the government because the government's evil. And if you start saying if you put down the government, you're putting down America, then you may as well just roll up the frickin' flag and go home. And I'm getting on toward the end. I'll probably continue on, but the last thing I wanted to say was I wanted to clarify what I said last time because I don't want the military to think that I'm saying that the Taliban actually overcame the greatest military, apparatus in history. In their mind, okay, I'm going to clarify it. In their perception, I'm talking from their point of view, they think they have overcome the greatest military apparatus in human history. So I'm not going to say they did that, but in their perception, they did, and that's more dangerous than if they actually did because they think that they're invincible. They think God is on their side, and they really think God is on their side. But I want to clarify that because I want to be really, accurate. They did not defeat the military. If we wanted to, we could make all of Afghanistan uninhabitable for hundreds of years and not leave one living thing on that surface. But we don't do that because that would be wrong. But I wanted to clarify that, and I'm going to go on with more stuff because we can't let this go. And I'm going to rant and keep on ranting because you can't let millions of people go. It won't be that obvious. They're not going to, it'll be televised, but it won't be allowed on YouTube. So, the atrocities are already happening. They're already talking about at the UN guy who's saying we urge and we stress and we must, encourage the Taliban to blah, blah. He's already saying, yeah, there's hangings. Women, governors are being kidnapped, or they're hostages now. They've been arrested. There's women who were prominent or outspoken that are hostages in their own house. And the Taliban is just waiting for America to just finally get the hell out so that they can go on with their agenda. And these women are probably terrified. So I'm not going to let it go. I'm going to keep on going, and I'm really going to have to get angry and insist that we expulse, get rid of the entire regime that we have in America. It's wrong. They're getting it all wrong. They're going to destroy us all. I'll leave it on that note. It's getting too long already. I think I said enough. Have a good morning, everybody.